All right, so today we have Justin Roy. Justin Roy is a local resident of Oklahoma. He's very familiar with the Noah Presgrove case. In fact, he has a personal connection to this case. So, Justin, thank you for coming on. Thank you. We've been talking to you offline for like a week or so, and we're very intrigued at some of the things that you've heard and what you've come up with. But let's start off with your personal connection to Noah and your son's personal connection to Noah.
Yes, sir. The last 2 years, my son played football and wrestled with Noah. So we got to know Noah pretty good, very well actually, being in the hotels and staying the night different places. And Noah was actually one of my son's training partners, and my family loved him. You know, Noah's came to my house a couple of times and picked my son up and kind of took him under his wing. My son was a freshman and Noah was a senior, so a little bit of gap there. But to Noah, it didn't matter. He's just that type of kid, you know. He liked Eric, you know. He wrestled with them. They're training partners, like I said. Um, and there's also a video of him, you know, after district duels. You know, he trained with my young son Waylon, and they were just out there messing around and I'm sure y'all saw the video. I posted on our page, and like I said, that was just the type of kid that Noah was, and he always gave back to the younger kids, and like I said, my son looked up to him, and he's definitely truly missed.
Yeah.
It's so tragic. I'm so sorry. It's such a
Yeah.
horrible case. And so, what kind of kid was Noah? I mean, tell us a
Oh
little
no.
bit about his personality because he looks like a lot of people liked him. He looked like he was popular, looked like he was fun, and that, you know, he was athletic. And there was just a lot of things about him that it seems like everybody was drawn to him.
Absolutely. Noah was a little bit of a jokester, you know. He had fun. Everybody loved him. Very athletic. That's why a lot of some of the stories that we've heard is it's kind of hard to believe for me personally because of his ability to run. He run track, cross country, wrestled, football. Noah was just a stud. But he had fun with everybody. He loved life, and everywhere you would go, everybody loved Noah. Everybody loved Noah. So that's why this is very, very hard on a lot of people.
Yeah. Where were you and your son when you heard the news?
Okay, so we were actually at the river as well. We were on the Red River. I'm sure y'all know from Oklahoma. There's the Waurika side, and then there's the Terrell side. Two bridges that both lead into Texas. And me and my family was actually on the Red River on the Waurika side. It's about on the water. It's about 35 miles. If you use highway, it's about 25 miles, something like that. 27 miles, somewhere around there.
So, what were you guys doing? Were you there just hanging out? Were you fishing or were you boating? What was
Oh
going on?
no. So our whole family, we went down there camping, and we have our ATVs, and we were just out riding, and same thing, a little bit of fishing, but mainly just enjoying our company with family time. It was a 3 4 day weekend, so just having some family time riding ATVs.
So, how did you find out about what happened to Noah?
So the morning, actually, my son called me into our camper. He was in our camper, and I'll never forget it. Kind of breaks my heart a little bit, but uh, so I opened the camper and my son was just bawling, and I'm like, what is wrong? Like, what happened? What's going on? And he said Noah's dead. Noah's dead. And I'm like, Noah's dead. And I'm like, what? You know, what do you mean? And he could barely talk. He said Noah's gone. He's dead. And I'm like, well, how do you know this? And of course I'm tearing up, you know, already. And he said it's all over social media. And I'm like, oh, social media. I'm like, you found out Noah's passed away on social media? And he said it's all over Snapchat and stuff like that. And that's how we found out. And I immediately called a friend of ours from wrestling. Like I said, it's a pretty tight community, and he confirmed it immediately, you know. And so we were just, I called my wife in there. I'm like, hey, you got to come, and we just cried, and we just all cried together. It was very, very tough to find that out, and the way we found out too. Like I said, it was on social media, and it was just heartbreaking.
Yeah. I can't imagine to find out news like that just on.
Casually like that on social media? Did someone just post it? It just was like
Apparently everybody was talking about it. A lot of kids nowadays talk on social media. That's how
Yeah,
they
of
kind of
course.
communicate,
Yeah.
Snapchat and whatever, inbox and Messenger. And so they were just kind of talking back and forth, and everybody was letting everybody know. Um, and like I said, it's very very tough. It was definitely heartbreaking. This day I'll never forget for sure.
Yeah. How's your son doing now?
He's doing better. Wrestling, he does wrestle a lot with Dalen and the coach, and that's been real good. But when certain songs, wrestling songs, obviously he hears and stuff, it eats him up a little bit.
Yeah.
There was one day he came home kind of late, and he was just sitting in his truck, and I'm like, well, what is he doing? And I went out there, and he just broke down. It just broke his heart. A song came on that reminded him of Noah, and it just hurts. But
Yeah.
you're gonna have that, especially like I said, with the relationship they had. So Noah was a good kid. He was a good kid.
Yeah. So
So tragic. It's really awful.
over this course of 9 months, I mean, what have you personally? Did you want to say something?
Well, yeah, before we get into all of that, because I know, Justin, you've been involved heavily on social media with this case
Yes,
since the
ma'am.
beginning,
Yes.
but I kind of want to know before that, what were you being told that had happened to him, and why did you decide to create a Facebook page?
Okay, so when it initially happened, to be completely honest, the very first story that we heard that he got hit by a car, he was hit and run. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I said, look, not Noah Pressgrove. Listen to me, not Noah Pressgrove. He's not gonna get hit by a vehicle. He's very athletic. He's very strong. He's very knowledgeable. He's a survivor, if you will. He kind of ran the streets, as a little kid growing up, and just I was like that don't make no sense to me personally. So kind of went from there, and then learning more about it. It just didn't set right with me from the very beginning.
When did you realize that it wasn't a hit and run?
So some of the first responders and like Dalen, I've talked to Dalen and several people that want to stay anonymous as well, and I don't blame them. But everyone that I talked to, including law enforcement, said that this was not a hit and run. This was not a hit and run. I tried to go out to the scene myself, but there's people there, so I had to wait a couple of days. And I went out there. I just wanted to see it. I just wanted to see it for myself and kind of do my own analysis, if you will. And then when I finally got out there, and my whole family, we all went out there and we want to see it. And just none of it made sense. Absolutely didn't make sense. I'm gonna go into this real quick. I had a buddy get hit, and he got hit by a little Hyundai, and um, it was bad. There's blood everywhere. He flew about 60, 70 foot. It was a closed casket. It was just really hard. Same thing on the community. And when I looked at Noah's, where his scene was, where his body was, I didn't see any of that. Nothing. Um, it was very very awkward, and it looked to me like he was just kind of placed on the ground, right there. Like, if you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
get hit by a car or vehicle, which y'all know, y'all talked about this a lot. You're gonna fly somewhere. You're gonna fly out of your clothes. You're not gonna leave your shoes on for sure. How does your shorts come off, but then your shoes don't? There's just too many inconsistencies in that. So
And this was even before the autopsy report.
absolutely, yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
I think everyone was kind of in agreement. Even the OHP, when they showed up, they even kind of agreed that this looks suspicious. It doesn't look like
Very
a truck hit.
suspicious. Yes, sir.
So yeah, that's the thing that's problematic about this case is that there's there was a lot of people there at that party, and
Yes.
but we have so little answers about what really happened, what transpired that early morning, those early morning hours at that party. When he left, they said the second time. The first time they said they were out and they were doing the side by side, and that they think he might have been surfing the side by side. There's no definitive about what he was doing, but that there was a side by side rollover accident, and he was all dirty and stuff like that. Then he came back to the place. They say that they showered him or bathed him or washed him off or anything like that, and then he didn't want to. He wanted to sleep in someone's room or bed, and they wouldn't let him. So he got angry and he said he walked off. And that's the last we heard. And then he shows up dead on the roadside. And then they say he got hit by a car. So, and then there are people that night that were there that we've heard stories from, and not even stories, but we've heard some of the things that's been spoken about, that, you know, his friend Jack was the first one to kind of tell everybody, burst through the door. We're not even sure exactly when the timing, but in and around the 3:30, 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what the new time is of that, but those are the kind of early morning hours before the sun come up. That's the one thing we know, that he was dead. And then there was no answers. And then I guess a couple of the guys who were in there actually went to the scene, and there was a fire department, EMT, I don't know if he was EMT, fire department, local volunteer that was there. And then I can't remember who, and then Jack was there. And then I think it was even before OHP got there. And then they were told to leave, apparently.
Yes, sir.
And then, so it's really kind of disheartening that after 9 months, there's not more answers. I know the family who threw the party, they have now retained a lawyer pretty quickly, to protect themselves, obviously. And, but we still don't have a whole lot of answers. We know that, the OHP is involved to a degree. OSBI, we know, is involved. FBI has kind of an advisory role. I don't know if they just have their pinky toe in and they're just going to be there at the request of the other agencies. But it seems like it's taken them a while to get a lot of the information accumulated. I know they did a GeoNet for the phones.
Yes, sir.
Don't know. Obviously, we won't know the results of that because they'll keep that close to the investigation. But what else are the kind of things? I mean, do we want to talk about some of the other things?
Well, let's just backtrack for a second. So you decided to create Noah's Army, and I know there's been a lot of heat on that Facebook page and a lot of infighting and things happening. So just give us a little bit of why you decided to create the page and what you were hoping to do with the page.
Okay. I'm going to backtrack real quick just on what he's touching on. I apologize.
That's fine.
Okay.
Real quick, though, that's one thing that lit a fire inside of me. And like I said, when I saw my son crying the way he did, like I made a vow to my son that I said I will find out what happened to Noah, whatever it takes. And I will admit on here that I did kind of do it the wrong way a little bit. I was very, very aggressive. I wanted answers. So I started questioning everybody. So as a wrestling family, and some of my family members were there as well, I was questioning them. I was questioning everybody. And they were talking. A lot of them were talking. A lot of them left a little bit earlier before the incident obviously happened. But like I said, I was questioning everybody. And a lot of stories were changing, though. Like I said, there's an ATV accident at midnight. There's an ATV accident at 3 a.m. So I started picking up on that. Well, then some of the family members, even my family members that were there, were like, no, this was a hit and run. I got several messages from Caleb Newton, several messages from Jack Newton. They were inboxing me, and which was good. We were going back and forth, and some of their stories were changing. Obviously, y'all have covered some of that stuff. Mm-hmm. But that's where it really lit another fire inside of me. I'm like, okay, something big is going on here. First of all, the stories are changing. Second of all, I'm hearing different stories from my family members that were out there. Like there was more than just one argument too. There was multiple arguments throughout that night. The party started getting a little bit aggressive.
So wait a minute, just back up. When you mean arguments, your arguments Noah with someone else?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There were several arguments, and Jack and Noah. Some of my nephews saw they got into a really heated argument. And like I said, I inboxed Jack about it. Because like I said, we're really close as the wrestling family. So, and he's like, no, it wasn't that big of an argument. We kind of hugged and made up, but then hearing different stories that I heard, it was a very, very aggressive. Even to some touching each other and pushing and stuff like that. And a little bit more, but I'm not going to elaborate on that right now. But it was aggressive. It was very aggressive. So, like I said, after that, I was like, okay, there's obviously a lot more here. And then just the other way that the other families, from the party and their families, were kind of came out really swinging too, attacking everybody. Like, no, it's a hit and run, and you're going to deal with it, type stuff. Like, it was a hit and run. It was a hit and run. That's all we heard for 9 months now. And like I said, I've seen it. I've talked to several people out there that were there that were like, no, this was not a hit and run. We know it's not. So.
Well, now the medical report has come out, and they've stated that it was blunt force trauma, not a hit and run.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I don't know if they said it was not a hit and run. They just said it didn't. It could be unknown. But unknown. So, I mean, but basically, one of the Dalen's family member who's a ME thought it looked suspicious as well based upon the evidence of the medical examiner's report. It doesn't look like, I mean, like you said, you had a friend of yours who was hit by a Hyundai, and they're claiming that this car, it was a truck that hit them.
A truck, and then that family wants it to be a semi hit them. The top of a mirror hit them. Well, here's my deal: a top of a semi going 65 miles an hour, it's going to knock your head off, in my opinion. It's gonna do a lot of damage. It's not, and there's going to be pieces. Where's the glass? Where's the guy when he's going to slam on his brakes? Hopefully, but if not, that means he's even going faster than that. So there's even way more damage than. He's not just going to flop right down on the ground, in my opinion. He's going to fly, pretty far away.
And what's the traffic like on that road?
So at that point, going back to Jack, I asked him that, and he was like, there was absolutely zero traffic, nothing, no traffic. And I'm like, okay, so how are y'all pushing this hit and run when you're sitting there telling me there's no traffic, zero? Apparently, somehow he told me that on both cameras there was no traffic. So. Especially on a holiday, there's hardly.
What cameras are you talking about?
The street cameras?
The cameras at the house?
Okay, so I wish we had the cameras at the house. Going back on that, Stevie's like, yeah, we had cameras, but they weren't working that day. But then later on, she posted like, our cameras saw, one of the trucks leaving. So here's the deal: did they work or did they not work? And there's a post about it, from her family members saying that they had state of the art cameras there, but now you're gonna sit here and tell us it wasn't working, because if they were working, we would be able to see Noah leave and who followed him.
Yeah, but they're saying that their cameras picked up a truck at that hour.
Earlier, she's saying that when some of the Texas boys left. Is kind of what she was talking about on one of her posts, but she also deleted that post too. So
okay, I'm curious if the law enforcement has those images.
I hope. Well, that's another thing too. That's kind of where we are. That they never searched the house. So if they didn't search the house, they didn't get the video surveillance that they had. From 9 months ago. So, and that was one of my things to law enforcement. Now, like I said, I started off the wrong way, if you will. I was kind of attacking people, if you will, and very aggressive. And even talking to OHP, I was kind of aggressive to the point to where he was like, hey man, don't tell me how to do my job, and I'm like, oh, I apologize. I got a little bit of law enforcement too, but nothing to what they have. But then to hear the family talk about like, well, they're kind of out of their league a little bit, so then I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of contradictory too. So I was
I mean, not that they're out of their league. It's just not their purview. OHP, they do traffic accidents. They'll do crimes on the freeways and the roads, but potential homicide investigation, they're not homicide investigators.
Yes, sir.
So, that's, and they'll be the first to tell you that.
Well, and same thing with the officer. I do respect him making the call that he did. He looked at it and he knew right away. He's like, okay, this is something different. This is something different. So I respect him a lot for that. He made a good call. Yeah.
So it's been 9 months now. Obviously we've spoken to some of the family. We spoke to Dalen, Robin. We talked to Madison and Ashley. And, I mean, they're getting some feedback from law enforcement, but they don't really know what's going on. And I don't think anybody really knows what's going on. I know there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of chatter that's happening both online and stuff flying around. And I just don't understand why, I'm curious to see how many people they questioned at that party. And we know some of them actually had to kind of reach out to some law enforcement and say, hey, listen, I was there. You may want to talk to me. And so, and we won't get into details of that right now.
Mhm.
And hopefully that'll present itself later on. But
I will say you made a good point on that too, and that's where I'm at too, because I have several people that I know out there, as well as family members that have not been questioned, and that not any days that have been questioned. There's kids that were out there Friday and Saturday and Sunday, and some of those kids haven't even been talked to, and that's what I find very odd to me.
yeah,
Like, here's the deal. Every time you question somebody and talk to them, it paints a picture of what happened. You might pick up on something that someone else says that they saw, because, like I said, there are a bunch of kids partying and having a good time. People remember different things,
and
so
they had their phones and they were documenting it all of it.
everything. That's another thing too. Why I'm glad you brought that up. While we were at the river, we actually saw some of it, because my nephews and nieces down there had cousins there, and we saw Noah dancing and just having a good time. And so we got to see some of that stuff. And then to bring it up, like with Dalen, like at 3:00, everything just went dead. Everything's deleted. Social media stopped. People erased their phones, and that's proven. So here's my deal. If it's just a hit and run, why would you do that?
Exactly. How do you know that they erased all their stuff?
So we had some other friends that were at the police, and they were all factory resetting their phones. Not all of them. I'm not going to say all of them, because but there were a few of them that factory reset their phones.
Hmm.
And so I go back to you can factory reset your phone. If it's just a hit and run, why? That to me makes no sense.
Well, I think that we're past that. I mean, I don't think anyone really believes it was a hit and run at this point.
No, ma'am. No.
But I'm curious. You did have some interaction directly. I'm most concerned with people that you've spoken to directly, rather than all these posts and people throwing out all these theories. And you did speak to Jack.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
And what did he tell you about that night?
So the first time, so we interacted in around September 20th. So kind of recent, maybe a couple weeks after everything happened, and we went back and forth. And his story, he was asleep pretty much all night, but he heard that Noah got in a wreck with an ATV. But that story also did change a little bit. It went from midnight to 3 a.m. And then his story, the first time I talked to him in September, he said he went to bed a little past midnight, and then 1 o'clock, and then 2 o'clock. And then now talking to some other people, like I heard Jack never went to sleep. So I don't know what to believe there. But his interaction, asking him questions, he answered everything that I asked him. His theory was a hit and run. He ran with that the whole time. He thinks that, Noah got mad at Avery, and that's conflicting too, because Avery was the birthday girl, and there was one side of the story, and also on the full load, they talked about it too. But some party goers said that Avery wanted Noah to sleep with her. It was her birthday, and he said some things to her. I don't know if we can say it on here. He called, I don't know. Did y'all hear that?
He said something derogatory to her.
Yeah.
He said something very derogatory, and then one party girl says she got really mad at him, really mad, and it kind of chased him to an extent. So I don't know what happened there. But then the other story, Jack's like, no, he wanted to get in bed with her after the shower. That's another story too. I've heard that he got in the shower, that he was bathed in the shower. Then I was heard that no one even seen him get in the shower. There's a few like no, I didn't take a shower.
It's
so
it's not
the
that
shower
big of a house.
thing bothers me, because there's so many videos and pictures of the marker all over Noah's body, which is like black, Sharpie,
hard
or
to get off.
who knows what kind of marker. But it's not that easy to get marker off.
Yes, ma'am. So I'll elaborate on that. So when Noah did go home late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, his friend, he has a friend, she wants to stay anonymous, but she's like, hey, you take a shower and wash yourself. Of course, he couldn't get it all off. So you do see some pictures of him Sunday night that he still has on his stomach. He has some writing left that he couldn't get off. And then his back left shoulder, there was a big, like someone's signature on it when he was outside with Brylan Sweat and Isaac Rojas, and that's very, very visible. And then, like I said, when he's found, there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing on him. So yeah, that's very odd as
It's,
well.
I mean, it's just odd to me. It would take a minute to get that off.
It would take a few minutes. Yes, ma'am.
The other
Yes,
thing
sir.
is the timeline of when people found Noah. It looked like from, and correct me if I'm wrong, some of the posts that I saw between you and Jack were that he said that he came in at 4. He saw Noah at 4 in the morning.
Okay,
Is that true?
so well, he didn't say he saw him at 4. He said his so we were going back and forth, and then I was asking some questions, and he was like, "Well, Noah's passed away by 4," and I'm like, "Man, how does he know that?" Like, to me, that was very, very odd. And I did send that to law enforcement. Everything that I have found, I've sent to law enforcement. So everything that I have, they have. But after that, I kept them going because I'm like, that is very odd to say. Like, because at that moment in time, no one knows what time Noah passed away. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that I know of.
I
But he
mean,
said,
only the
yeah,
medical examiner can kind of predict a time of death, but even
yes,
then,
sir.
it's only a window.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Yeah, and he just said, yeah, Noah was gone by 4 a.m. And I'm like, whoa, where'd that come from? But
Well, that's, I mean, it's also, you got to think these are kids partying. So it's like you're up for 3 days partying. They're not going to really remember a lot of things that have been going on. Everything's kind of melding together. Um, what's been going on with your page? Why is it so controversial? Why is everybody having so many issues with it? I haven't really dived into all of the posts. I'm trying to stay neutral and look at everything objectively, but I do know that there's been a lot of controversy on your page specifically.
yes, ma'am. So I appreciate the question. So first of all, it's not my page. I did not create it. I was added as an admin later on, and the reason is the justice page, well, very good family, but it's very, very limited on what you can post and what you could do. So the women that created our page, their theory at the time was just to keep it open, let everything go, let everything come out, let people talk, for the most part, and just kind of see where it goes. There was one post before the Army page was started that on the Justice page where Caleb got on there, and he did like he's like, hey, if anybody's got questions, let's go. And he's ready to talk, and he's ready to get his information out there. And so a lot of people were asking him a lot of questions and stuff. And some of them may have gone too far, whatever. And the family kind of didn't like where it was going. So they deleted everything. And I was like, at that time, I was like, whoa, that's a lot of information. Like there's a lot. And some of it was conflicting of what he said before. You know what I mean? Like I said, I got some stuff from him when it initially started. And some of the stuff he was saying there kind of wasn't adding up to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, man, they should have just let him go. And then so with that said, the other ladies on the page, they decided to create the Army page just so they could just let people talk. But with that said, it kind of did get out of control. I do admit on that. Like 2 of the ladies had to back out for other reasons. And so I was actually going to shut the page down. And then some of our followers, I talked to them, some of the close ones that are in there, and they're like, no, don't do it. Just keep it going. Just get some help. And I thank y'all for my help. Shannon and Dusty have been amazing. I added some extra admins. And even with that, though, we came into some stuff where some of the, I can't say who, whatever, but they created a lot of fake accounts and they're pushing a false narrative. And not only that, though, they were attacking people on our page. And then not only that, they were inboxing people and they were threatening stuff. So that's the only reason why we decided to go private, so we can keep more control on it. And the family, and I did talk to Dalen and Robin, and they're like, no, we don't mind if you keep the page because there is a lot of good information coming out, but just kind of monitor it better. And so that's where and I do want to give a shout out to Noah's Army real quick. I appreciate y'all. There's been a lot of good information and a lot of people putting in a lot of work on it behind the scenes. And there's people from, even on the Justice page, both pages, there's a lot of good information coming out that have never been seen or said before. One is Caden's testimony on there. One of the truck drivers got on there. The fishing story was on there. I'm sure y'all have touched up on that a lot. You know,
What did the truck driver say? Was this the one that showed up at the scene?
so yes, sir. So Tyler, his name's Tyler. He showed him, and in his mind, and even talking to him, he's like, I was the first. In his mind, he's the first person on scene because there was nobody else. He didn't, like, everybody was gone. He seen Noah. He was like, whoa, what's this? You know, and I thank God that he called 911 when he did, and he immediately called 911, and that was a blessing too. And then he seen another truck driver coming around, and that truck driver was calling 911 too. So the one truck driver seen him first, but he had to turn around and then come back, and then Tyler kind of seen him second. But in his mind, he didn't see him second. He saw him first because there was no one else there. And both of the guys did the right thing. They called 911 and kind of got everything going and getting help.
That's something new that we only heard there was one truck driver.
Well, there was one semi truck driver, and then there was one. He was going to work in a white truck. He was driving a white truck, so he was going to work in his white truck.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you've spoken to that guy, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I have.
It's a horrible thing to come up upon.
Very, very. And same thing. I don't want to get into, that's his story to tell in another time, but same thing. And I asked him straight up, hey, was this hit and run? And he said, no, sir. No, sir.
So even he said it. It didn't look like
even he said it. He said, no, sir. He's like, I've seen animals hit. And he said, no, sir, this was not. And he elaborated that this is another thing too I can't get into. There were some other things with that he witnessed. Right now I can't. He wants to stay a little bit anonymous, but put it this way: the law enforcement knows it, and it's a good thing. So, and so Caden Presley came on, and I know y'all going to talk to him a little bit, but those timelines, are y'all going to talk to him about that, or do you want me?
We hope so.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
Oh, can I fix the Army page?
Sure.
Yeah. So wait, real quick about the Army page. So Noah's Army page. Who started that?
So it was a woman named Donna and another lady named Julie, and the same thing. They started it just because everything that was going on was very, very limited. Like you couldn't post some stuff on the Justice page, and they felt like if you had an open page where everybody could talk, it'll get everybody's theory of what they thought. Because going back a little bit, law enforcement didn't release anything. They didn't release anything for months and months and months. So everybody's kind of in the dark. So pages like this, it creates theories and opinions, and it also gets people talking. Like we had those family, the Party Goers family got on there. Stevie Howard got on there, and Becky got on there, Sarah Long, and Carter Combs, and some other people. And it was good, the interaction, for a while it was good. And then some of the threatening stuff got on there, and then some of the fake accounts started, and then it kind of got out of control. And that's why I said I had to get some extra help. And the other two ladies, they had to back off for their own personal reasons. And like I said, I got some help, and I got some good help. And speaking of that too, we got a lot of people from all over the world. Canada, a lot of good people in Canada helping out, Australia helping out, and even from different states that are from California and Oregon. I don't want to name all the states, but y'all know who y'all are, and thank y'all so much for putting in the time that y'all do.
No, I mean it's captured international attention. I mean, we saw some, the stuff that we've posted on our podcast that we've done with the family members, the 3 we've done. I mean, there's people all the way from Australia watching this case.
Absolutely.
So it's interesting. So it's definitely struck a chord with a lot of people. But
of course it has, because kids go to a party, nobody expects someone to die.
Exactly.
And then die under mysterious circumstances when nobody knows what happened. It's terrifying.
I'm a little confused why there was for the past 8 months, and I guess short of the ME report coming out, which they made public, which they have to make public, there has been nothing from law enforcement, at least, saying that, what we're doing. That all we know is that they said from the get-go, they thought it was suspicious, and that's all we know. And we have a little bit of experience of the law enforcement down there from the previous case that we're still working in the county next over with Molly Miller and Colt Haynes. So we do know that sometimes it can be problematic depending upon the information that gets out. But I'm just curious on why they really haven't, and because they didn't really tell the family anything until after the autopsy report either,
Yes, sir.
which is, it's concerning. 8 months is a long time not to hear, any kind of information about your loved one when it's been dubbed suspicious.
Yes, sir. I'll say something about that too. So after the second podcast from Full Load, after listening to it, like they talked about the geofencing, they talked about the Texas Rangers getting involved, with the autopsy and the toxicology report. In my mind, so I did back way off, from July, February, March timeframe, because I thought there was going to eventually be some arrests made. I was leaning in that direction because, like I said, with those, with the geofencing, with the autopsy, toxicology report, cell phone data, and then testimonies, I personally thought it would be solved by then, and then it just months went by and we didn't hear anything, nothing at all. And I talked to the family here and then, they didn't hear nothing. And I'm like, okay, something else is going on here.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, to give the law enforcement the benefit of the doubt, they may not have any kind of hard evidence. They may have a lot of speculation and circumstantial evidence, but we've learned, through this process and covering a bunch of cold cases and regular active cases that, a lot of times circumstantial evidence is enough to convict someone if it puts them at some place at some point in time and they don't have the correct alibi of their stories not matching up. But I don't know what they have. We don't know if they have any DNA evidence. I mean, he was found I want to clarify also, when the trucker, can you at least tell us what he saw? Was he wearing any clothes? I know he was wearing those two mismatched shoes, but we've heard reports that he didn't have his shorts on or he had his shorts on. And what color were the shorts? We've heard that he was in black shorts. And then we heard that the shorts at the scene were white. There's a lot of misinformation and confusion there. What do you know?
He at one point in time was wearing black shorts. They might be for another podcast time, but they were removed. They were removed from him. So,
but at the party or at the?
No, sir.
Okay,
that's for.
Gotcha. Okay, well, we'll keep that. That's sensitive information. We don't want to let that out. But I was just curious because
they were removed.
Okay. So when the trucker saw him, he didn't have any shorts on.
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
Well, that's what I was just want to clear up.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And I think they said that in one of the news articles, I think. So yes. It's not completely privileged information. So that's another thing. How do you end up without your clothes on? Even though if he was just wearing shorts with no underwear, he was just, going commando, and he just had, mismatched shoes, one of which was someone's in the house that we found out, because they woke up there and they were looking for their other shoe. And
that'd be another good podcast for y'all.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
Sir.
We'll get all to that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we have to kind of disseminate and figure out, so we don't want to disrupt the integrity of the case. But at the same point, there are facts of the case that are out there. My confusion also is with Avery Joe's family a little bit. You said they have tons of I saw some of the chatting online that they had, state-of-the-art cameras around the house. I mean, how big is that house that's on that property that they were partying at?
It wasn't that big. It wasn't just a massive house. If I had to guess, maybe 1,200, 1,500.
That's what it looked like. That's what it looked like. And that's why that's the interesting thing is that why is it a 1,200 square foot house and you have people coming in. If you have 10 people in that house is full.
It's full. Yes, sir.
It's full. If you have 30 or 40 that are coming in and out, it's packed. And so I'm sure they were outside too and stuff like that on the land and the porch, which we saw in some of in the videos. But I just find it, and then they told you they had cameras, but they said they weren't working. Most people in that area, in those remote areas, especially farming land, and they're watching their property.
Yes.
And they have cameras everywhere. We've been down there. We've seen it. It looks very rural. You don't think anybody. And then, someone calls you, says, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "How'd you see me?" It's like, "Well, I
On
can
your
see my camera." And like,
Absolutely.
"Where's your camera?" He goes, "I'm not telling you where my camera is." So it's like, so it's very, people are very, safety conscious down there. And so it's confusing to find out that there were cameras, but they weren't operating. And were there any other cameras outside of the property that caught anything?
I'm not sure about that. We did hear there was some trail cams because it's hunting grounds that they host hunts there in that general area. Um, Coming back to the dove hunt, have y'all heard of the dove?
Yeah.
Okay, so
It was-
I'll bring
it was-
that in real quick. So on Friday, opening season of dove hunt, they had a dove hunt, and I seen the flyer, and I kind of held off on it a little bit, but I was like, you know what, something's just not setting right. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna throw it out there and see what happens. And so they had a dove hunt on Friday and Saturday, and the only thing I threw out there was like, hey, who was all there? Who all went to this dove hunt? And on our page, and y'all can go back and read it. There was a lot of flack about that. Like nobody wanted to admit it to go on this dove hunt. So my deal then, I'm just like, okay, so you have this huge dove hunt, but nobody went. To me, that made absolutely no sense. And then nobody wanted to talk about it. A lot of people, there was a lot of deflection about it. There was a few threats about it, and I'm like, look, just answer the question. It's a dove hunt. Like, why? Like, if I went to a dove hunt, yes, sir, I went to a dove hunt. It was fun, great. But I did not get that at all. Did not get that.
Let's talk about that dove hunt a little bit. I mean,
Yes,
normally on those dove hunts, because I saw the flyer for it, so it was someone obviously posted a flyer for it. And then normally, how many people usually show up to those, and what time do they usually occur?
Usually dove hunts will be in the morning time, and there could be 30 to 40 people. There's different teams. I'm not sure how they have them down there, but in the past, some of the ones I've done, 30 to 40 people, and then you go hunting, and you're not going to hunt really too long afternoon. It's kind of a morning thing.
Is it daybreak? Is that usually when it starts?
Kind of daybreak, yes, sir. Daybreak. You get out there, and that's one thing I brought up, because I'm like, okay, now you're kind of putting in more people in an area that are saying that they weren't there, possibly, and that's why I decided to put that on our page and just see where it would go. And like I said, I'll let y'all read the comments when y'all get time.
That's fine. What was the proximity from the house and the dove hunt? Like
okay, so roughly it was around the same area. I'm saying within a mile or two tops.
Okay.
So it's very, very, very close.
Was it on the same side of the road as the house or is it on across the street from that? I mean, I saw a map of the house and the layout. I mean, the proximity from the house to where they found Noah isn't that far away.
It's not that far, no, sir. I'm not exactly sure where they held this one, but I know the general area was the outfitters that had it, and it's like I said, from there to the Texas border is roughly 2 miles. So it had to have been within that 2 mile race. That's why I say roughly 2 miles.
Okay, interesting.
But very, very interesting.
Yeah, because you figure even if you had the 30 or 40 people there, I mean, you're going to have traffic, because it looks like there's not that many roads going in and out of there. It's just
no, sir.
Was it the whole week? It was supposed to be the whole weekend?
So it was opening day. It was on a Friday and then Saturday. So they hosted the dove hunt on Friday and then Saturday, and they didn't do it on Sunday and Monday. Okay. So it was just a 2-day event. So it was before what happened to Noah.
Yeah. So that's probably why.
But going back to, we've heard all the rumors and on different podcasts that, Noah was at the party Saturday night and there was altercations there. He got into it with someone. He saw something at some point in time, and I don't want to speculate or get into all the rumors, but he saw someone possibly with a minor or a different woman. I'm sure y'all have heard some of the stuff.
We've heard that.
We've heard some of it. Okay.
Here's my deal. What was that an adult from the dove hunt? Was that someone that went to the dove hunt and then decided to go to the party afterwards, And it's speculation, but after asking about it and no one admitted to it, that to me, that's very odd. That was very something for law enforcement to look into, I would think.
Yeah, I'm sure they are.
I'm sure they are too. The Texas boys, who were these people?
Okay, so that a great question. I'm glad you asked that. So when Jack was always saying Texas boys, oh, he always uses the term Texas boys. There's three groups of Texas boys. It's just not one group of Texas boys. There's three different groups of Texas boys, and that took some time to kind of figure out and find out. But there were some St. Joe Texas boys, and which on actually one of the messages between Jack, he brought their names up. Oh, it was one guy Pepe and some other names. I'm not gonna get all into, but the St. Joe boys. But he never brought up the Nocona Texas boys. He never brought up the Bowie Texas boys that were there. So you got these different groups of Texas boys there that, in a general sense, he just says, oh, the Texas boys. Well, which Texas boys are you talking about? And I kind of think that's where we're at because, towards, I said I had two different messages from Jack, one in September and one in April. So going back to the one in April, he brought up that, he's like, okay, well, if I'm still thinking it's a semi, but if it's not semi, then it has to be the Texas boys. And that was said multiple times. And then I heard it again from another party goer that wants to stay anonymous, was like, I think it was the Texas boys. And I'm like, okay, so now who are these Texas boys, And so I thought that's why the Texas Rangers came and got involved. I thought they were looking for all the Texas boys. And so hopefully they found them all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's right on the border. So,
yes,
and if
sir.
there were people from Texas there, I would imagine that's why they were kind of looped in by law enforcement saying, hey, listen, if you hear anything on that side of the border, let us know.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you said you had family members there at the party, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So how are they doing?
They're doing pretty good. And I'm not going to put all their theories out there, but they have theories too. And some of the stuff that they seen was kind of alarming too. But they're doing pretty good and they're doing okay.
But none of them think it's a hit and run.
Absolutely not. None of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just curious because it's just, like I said, it's got some similarities to the Molly and Colt case that we're looking into in Love County, where there was a party that weekend too when those two kids went missing. And same thing, all their Facebook accounts and socials were basically all scrapped after that weekend when they found out that she was missing and they were missing. So, but that data is out there. I mean, they can wipe it from their phone, but it's out there. I mean, everything in this cloud-based era that we live in, there's got to be something there. And hopefully, I mean, I don't know what the geofencing, I know you said they did that. Curious and see, because we had to do something like that for Molly and Colts too, independent of just kind of going through people's phone records. But yeah, I mean, there's seems like there'd be a lot of data to look at from that period of time, and you had so many people, and hopefully they have like a solid list of names of people. I mean, just from you, sounds like how many family members you had there at the party?
I had 7.
You had 7,
Wow,
so that's just
lot.
you, and they said was only like 30, 40 people, so that's that's a chunk of percentage right there. And are they all in agreement to what they think's happened, or they all have different stories?
Different stories. Because some of our family by marriage is the Millions, Jasmine and Stephanie. She posted a 341 picture, and to me that was just kind of alarming, especially if it's a hit and run or if it's an accident, especially if it's an accident. If it's an accident, if it's an accident and Noah's already passed away, why would you post that? To me personally, that's me kind of, that's one reason why I'm like,
did she know? I mean, she's a kid. Did she know what happened at that point? I mean, I don't know. I saw that and I was like, well,
is she just
maybe
passing
he walked off and, girls or teenage girls, the hot guy walked off. They're like, oh, he's missing, I mean, I don't know.
Well, here's the deal.
You could read into anything with all these posts and things, but.
Well, here's my deal though. If it was just an accident, they're all going to talk that it's an accident. When the accident happens, they're going to come back and be like, hey, no, this happened in an accident. So that's where I'm at. Like, if it's just a hit and run, if it really, and here's what I'm going with this is like, we know it's not a hit and run. 100% sure that was not a hit and run. But if it was just a hit and run, okay, I understand the 341 post. Okay, she wouldn't have known. But now if it's an accident or something more sinister, why would you do the 341 picture? Because if you knew that he was already passed away. It's a timestamp. It's a timestamp. Oh, 341, no, is gone. That's just my personal opinion. And so, especially
because that number, it's confusing because that number doesn't match up with what some of the other people say as far as when they found him and then when they were there, and, what we're talking about. But
absolutely.
it doesn't match up. So, so what you're saying is that you have family members that are related to other people that were at the party as well.
Yes, sir.
So give us a total of how many other people were they related to? So you're talking about maybe rounded up to 10?
So roughly about 10, I would say. And then, like I said, those girls were raised as best friends with the party host. So they grew up together. They were best friends. Their moms are best friends. And like I said, it's a small town, so we've all been around each other at one point in time. So like I said, this is very, very tough on a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's horrible. It's bad enough when
it's really awful.
And I will say this out there. I do believe some of them don't know. I will say that. I do believe some of them don't know. They might have been asleep, and
But some people must know.
They gotta know.
I would imagine someone has to have known what happened. I mean, it didn't seem like the street was that far from the house. Even if he did get hit by a car or did get hit by, I don't believe it was a hit and run. But if it was, wouldn't someone have heard something?
Yes,
yeah.
Ma'am.
And then the other thing too is if it was an accident where he did get injured on the side by side, and he did, as a result of his injuries, he died from that, and someone witnessed it. I mean, that's an accident. That's
maybe they were scared and it got spiraled out of control. I mean, it's possible. You're talking about kids who've been partying for 3 days. Everybody has to keep that in mind. These are just kids, the young kids. So you're partying for 3 days straight. You're going to get different stories.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to really remember what happened.
To touch up on the accident, that's my main thing. If it was just an accident, call 911. Get help. I mean, it would have been so much easier if just an accident, honest accident. Call 911. A lot of these families too. You've seen the posts. They claim they have deep pockets and this and that. Y'all have seen the posts. Like, why
would you even say that though? That's like to me. It says, why would you telegraph that saying, oh yeah, they can do whatever they want. We got deep pockets. We'll just it's kind of like a middle finger to the family, the victim's family, saying, come after us. Whatever you want. We're gonna do this.
We got deep pockets, so here you go. But also going on one of Stevie's posts, and I'm not gonna put too much of her stuff out there, but she said if the family was involved and they had anything to do with it, the body would never be found. She posted that. And she posted that. And like why would you say that? Like, here's my deal too, and I'm glad you brought that up, but not one time have I accused anybody. Not one time. Anything that I have put out there, I have heard from a party goer themselves, and there are different stories from social media, from the news, and from family members. So anything that I've heard from that's what I put out there. I haven't even told my theory what I think happened. I haven't even put that out there yet, and I've been asked to by several people, but I just won't yet.
There's no need to right now. It's like, but there's still. I mean,
it's coming. I think I have a very good idea exactly what happened, and it's coming.
Yeah. And hopefully, it comes soon and the family can have some sort of resolution because, they're screwing up with not only just, Noah's gone. Okay. So it's not hurting him anymore. I mean, he's in heaven now. And so, but the people that it's hurting is obviously Noah's family and the family of the people who threw the party because they're under the microscope right now. And then all these kids that were at that party that have to live in the shadow of Noah's death. And if they do know something, it's just going to eat them away. It's eventually going to come out. It's going to
come out. That's us. Just tell the truth, get it over with. And the family's already, and they came on here and said, look, they'll have forgiveness for you. They'll have mercy for you. They just want to know what happened to their baby, to Noah.
Yeah.
just tell the truth and be done.
No, they're very similar to Paula Fielder, who's the cousin of the Molly, and she said, "Listen, I don't even care if they get prosecuted. I just want to know the truth.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to know what happened. I
And
want to find because they're at least Noah. You know where he is. He got a proper burial and he's with God now. But when you have no bodies, it's like how hard is that to kind of deal with?
Very hard. That would be very, very hard. Yes, sir.
But I just think my instincts are telling me his body didn't just end up there. His body was put there. The way they said that his body was in a fetal position, that's kind of strange. If he was hit by a car, and if that's accurate, if he was in a fetal position, that's a strange place to be.
You know what bothers me about the fetal position? We do a lot of serial killing cases, and a lot of serial killers are very meticulous, and they will put a victim in a fetal position. It's usually an act of compassion or like love or like feeling. It's like the one time where the serial killer has like a semblance of an emotion. So the fact that someone went to the effort to put Noah in that position made me think that person had a personal connection to him.
Yes, ma'am. And I felt the exact same way. That's why I've been very, very passionate about this. I felt the same way. And two things that I said that I do know for a fact. I could say, well, I do. It was not a hit and run. And the social hosting party that was thrown caused Noah's death. Noah passed away because of that party.
Well, yeah. They shouldn't have been, feeding minors alcohol. And then it seemed like they were pretty much, was there any kind of, because Avery was living in that house with her friends, right? So they were all, there was no adults there other than.
Here's another story too. They partied the very next Saturday out there. The very next Saturday. So, Noah passed away on a Monday, and that's supposed to be one of their best friends, good friends. They partied the very next weekend. That to me, that's.
Yeah, that's tough.
So there was
a tough one to
there was no
swallow.
one over the age of 25 at that party, like as an adult, kind of like watching, making sure they're not doing anything they can hurt themselves.
I believe there was, to be completely honest with you.
You do?
Yeah, absolutely. There's multiple houses there. My personal opinion, I think a lot of the kids were at this house, and some of the adults were at the other house, and maybe going back and forth, if you will.
How far are the houses apart?
It's maybe 100 yards.
Okay, so enough to be out of earshot.
Mm-hmm. But I do believe there was, and that's a good thing about the GeoNet. That GeoNet's going to show everybody was there. So you're seeing some stuff now where I didn't know the sister was there around the area. Now she came out on some of the posts like, well, yeah, I was there. I woke up so and so and this and that. So so now you're putting yourself there. Here's the GeoNet's going to put yourself there anyway. So
yeah,
might as well just say what happened.
Well, that's the thing. Eventually someone's going to talk, and let's be clear: the first person who talks controls the narrative. So it's always smart to tell the truth, just be honest, and they'll have mercy on you if it was an accident.
Yes.
Yeah. But we know how this works. People don't want to get involved. And if a kid does want to talk and parents are like, you're not talking, right. They're telling you're not getting involved. I don't care what you know.
I believe there's a lot of that. Like I said, too, and both pages, we got to kind of be careful what we put out there. And I know some of the stuff that's found, some of the people put out there and they're real fine, happy about it and this and that. But every time something does come out, I've noticed their narrative change. It's changed from a hit and run from a car to a hit and run by semi, and then it went to the Texas boys, and then it went to an ATV accident, and now they're blaming certain other, like, I'm just gonna throw it out there. I got an inbox the other day from one of them, and they're like, "Oh, I really think Mikey did it. I think Mikey did it. And I'm like, what? So different things are changing slowly, and I think they're changing the narrative with everything that's put out on our page. So we got both pages kind of be careful for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We started a page too, just so people can talk about the podcast and whatever they want to talk about. But I think it's important to keep the conversation going because you got to get to the truth.
Yeah. I know law enforcement's not happy about it. Paula got yelled at by law enforcement for starting a Facebook page, but it keeps people connected to the case. It keeps it in the forefront so people don't forget about it. Because I'm telling you, people forget about these things really quick, and out of sight, out of mind. Everyone starts living their lives, and before you know it, it's going to be 2-3 years later, and we're still back to where we were.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
and
sir.
because Molly and Cole, it's been 11 years for them. I mean,
Oh,
the good news is that since we had started the podcast, that we've been helping with that effort and keeping it in the forefront. But we were down for almost like a year because BIA had taken over the case, and we were comfortable with what they were doing. They had a plan. They were.
But this case is different
Yeah.
because there's a lot of people involved, and I feel like it's cracking right now as we speak. I just feel like people are starting to realize that they got to say something.
Yeah.
It's very,
Yes,
very different than
Yeah.
Molly and Colt in that respect.
Well, I want to acknowledge your Speak Up shirt. So I've been seeing them online.
Hey, Coach's Corner, y'all order it. Coach's Corner. Delisa Newman, she's been putting it out there. They're amazing shirts. Y'all get y'all one.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
That'd be great. So we'll keep in touch, and then we'll. Excuse me.
Do you mind if I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Well, like one thing I will say, I'm not a CI. Someone thinks I'm a CI. I'm not a PI. I've never claimed none of that stuff. Like I said, I'm very passionate about this. What happened to Noah, and that's what keeps me driving. Everybody loved Noah. So I just want to put that out there, and I won't stop. I'm not going to stop. I've been asked to back down, just to let y'all know. I've been asked that I need to tone it down a little bit, but we love Noah too much to stop. I'll tell you this, and we're not going to stop. We're not going to back down. I'm not going to be bullied. So just to put that out there, and I appreciate y'all for having me on your show.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll be talking to you again soon, and then, like you said, if. What was the page that you can go on and order the T-shirt?
It's from Coach's Corners, and both the Justice for Noah has a link to it in the featured, and our Army page, Noah Pressgrove's Army page has a featured for it. And she just actually posted right now to all the states, and it's actually amazing. Did you see it? Yeah, and all the states that have bought shirts, and then several countries have bought shirts. That's amazing. That is amazing.
Awesome.
That's what you want. You want people to kind of be, mobilized for this effort because, like I said, the more eyeballs on it, unfortunately, it's one of the things that families can do to make sure that law enforcement is being held accountable for the investigation. Not that they're not doing anything, but they have a lot of other cases going on, and there's a lot of competition for their bandwidth. And, and honestly, people have to remember for law enforcement, this is a job. So it's like, they're not living it 24/7 like the family members, like you guys are, like your son is. They're not living with that. Although, we do know it's a lot of pressure on law enforcement, and it does affect them personally as well. We know that from experience, but it helps to have this kind of attention to it.
Yes, sir. I'll say that too. There's several times I was very aggressive and overbearing, and some of the law enforcement involved was like, "Hey, I got other cases. Hey, I got a family." I text one of the guy like I found something, and I didn't realize it, Mama. I texted him at like midnight, and he's like, "Man, what are you doing? I got a family." So I do apologize for that, but like you said, there's several of us. There's one time where I was going through old messages and this and that, and reading and stuff like that. Well, then my alarm went off to go to work, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to go.
It's a rabbit hole. You got to pace yourself.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I mean, we're not only this case, and we were dealing with Molly and Colt, and then we were just out in the hills around us looking for remains of the serial killers that happened like 30 years ago. So it is. It's a rabbit hole. But you have to, when you get tips and when you hear stuff, you got to follow up on them right when it happens, because otherwise it'll just disappear.
It disappears. Yes, sir. It disappears.
Or the person disappears. They move out of the area. They move on. All these kids are young. I mean, they're going to college. We've had some people where the family basically just says, "You're not living here anymore. You're going to live with your grandpa in Oregon. We want you away from this place because we know you saw something or didn't see something. You're involved. Yada yada yada." But Anyway, Justin, thank you for talking with us. Appreciate and respect the work you're doing. But yeah, keep a lid on it. Don't go too turbo on them.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all very much.
All right. Take care.
Hold on. Stay on for 1 second.